Hello everybody, it's a Vertical Sandwich. Welcome back to book reviews. So today, Authority by Jeff VanderMeer, the second book in the Southern Reach trilogy. Now, this should be said, if you haven't watched the review, well, okay, so there are spoilers in this review for the book Annihilation. Here's the thing, you should really read the book Annihilation without spoilers. It's a really, really good book. But this is book 2 of a trilogy, and we're going to cover Acceptance, the third book, but we're going to cover that next week. So, anyway, in Annihilate, well, let's read the back here. Authority isn't a book that just picks up where the last one left off. Instead, it's packed full of new pleasures, not only new characters and settings, but whole new kinds of writing. If Annihilation is an expedition novel painted with a thick coat of weird, and scary, by the way, then Authority is a spy novel given the same dark lacquer, which makes me desperate to know what the third book is going to be like. Whether it will be some mixture of the two, Jurassic Park meets James Bond, or some third thing entirely. So, after 30 years, the only human engagement with Area X, a seemingly malevolent landscape surrounded by an invisible border and mysteriously wiped clean of all signs of civilization, has been a series of expeditions overseen by a government agency, so secret it has almost been forgotten, the Southern Reach. Following the tumultuous 12th expedition chronicled in Annihilation, the agency is in complete disarray. John Rodriguez, aka Control, is the Southern Reach's newly appointed head. Working with a distrustful but desperate team, a series of frustrating interrogations, a cache of hidden notes, and hours of profoundly troubling video footage, Control begins to penetrate the secrets of Area X. But with each discovery, he must confront disturbing truths about himself and the agency's pledge to serve. In Authority, the second volume of Jeff VanderMeer's Southern Reach trilogy, Area X's most disturbing questions are answered, but the answers are far from reassuring. There are, no answers in this book. Don't let this book tell you it answers a bunch of questions from Annihilation, because it doesn't. At all. You learn a few things. But one of the things is, and here's where the spoilers kind of start, one of the most beautiful thing about this book is when it starts, Control has taken over the Southern Reach, and everybody has come back from the last expedition except the psychologist. And the problem with that is we saw every character die except one in Annihilation. So, we know that these people aren't really those people, or if they are, something incredibly strange is going on. And that's a beautiful way to start a novel. You start a novel like that, and the reader instantly has to go and so that's where we're at, and that's about all. One of the things this book does very well, let's get this off the table right now, is giving you more questions and kind of half answers. So it'll show you kind of it shows you kind of videos from the first expedition, kind of in print, and then it shows you kind of videos of, at one point in Area X to test the border, they just let hundreds of rabbits go and let them fly into the border, and they paint that in kind of the most disturbing colors it possibly could be. It's just fantastic. It's just, VanderMeer is great at suspense. And we do find out a lot of stuff about, I'm trying to tiptoe around the things that are very important, but we do find out that the psychologist from the first mission was the director of the Southern Reach, and that's who Control is replacing. And that's the only name he goes by, is Control. And so our main character from the first book, the biologist, she has come out. And it's an open question because we don't know whether or not the biologist is alive at the end of Annihilation, right? But she's refusing to go by her name. She is only being referred to, she wants to be referred to as Ghostbird. That is what she's calling herself. And Control is calling himself Control, because he's part of a secret government agency, so using his real name apparently is inappropriate. So, that's what's going on, and so what happens is Control starts to kind of think that maybe the biologist is different, than the other people who come out. People always come out of the expeditions, and then they die horribly, of incredibly aggressive cancer. That is the premise of anybody who goes into Area X. But, Control starts to think there's something different about the biologist. And his case for that is kind of laid out in the book, and he seems to be kind of onto something. that she doesn't react the same way that the other people who have come out do. And so he starts to think that maybe he doesn't really know. Like, nobody really knows what's going on. But he starts using his authority in the Southern Reach to kind of keep a handle on her, because the other subjects get spirited off to a different government agency, and he makes it a point to try to keep the biologist so that he can talk to her more. And this is one of their interviews. He said nothing, weighing the threat. Oh, wait. What do you mean? He knew exactly what she meant. You answer a question and I'll answer a question. He said nothing, weighing the threat of that versus the reward. He could lie to her. He could lie to her all day long and she'd never know. Okay, he said. Good, I'll start. Are you married? Or ever been married? No and no. 0 for 2. Are you gay? That's another question, and no. Fair enough. Now ask away. What happened at the lighthouse? Too general. Be more specific. When you went inside the lighthouse, did you climb to the top? What did you find? She sat up, back to the wall. That's 2 questions. Why are you looking at me that way? I'm not looking at you in any particular way. He just became aware of her breasts, which hadn't happened during previous sessions, and now is trying to become unaware of them again. But that's 2 questions, apparently given the correct response. Yes, you're right about that. Which one do you want answered? What did you find? Who says I remember any of it? You just did, so tell me. Journals. Lots of journals. Dried blood on the steps. A photograph of the lighthouse keeper. A photograph? Yes. Can you describe it? 2 middle-aged men in front of the lighthouse, a girl out to the side, the lighthouse keeper in the middle. Do you know his name? Saul Evans, he said without thinking, but couldn't see the harm. Was already mulling over the significance of a photograph that hung in the director's office, also existing in the lighthouse. That's your question? He could tell she was disappointed. She frowned, shoulders slumped. Could tell as readily that the name Saul Evans meant nothing to her. What else can you tell me about the photo? It was framed, hanging on the wall at the middle landing, and the lighthouse keeper's face was circled. Circled? Who had circled it? And why? That's another question. Yes. Now tell me what your hobbies are. What? Why? It seemed like a question for the wider world, not the Southern Reach. What do you do when you're not here? Control considered that. I feed my cat. She laughed, chortled actually, ending in a short coughing fit. That's not a hobby. More like a vocation, he admitted. No, but I jog, I like classical music, I play chess sometimes. I watch TV sometimes, I read books, novels. Nothing very distinctive there, she said. I never claimed to be unique. What else do you remember from the expedition? She squinted, eyebrows applying pressure to the rest of her face, as if it might help her memory. It's a very broad question, Mr. Director. Very broad. You can answer it however you like. Oh, thank you. I just meant that I know what you mean, she said. I almost always know what you mean. Then answer the question. It's a voluntary game, she explained. We can stop at any time. Maybe I want to stop now. That recklessness again, or something else. She sighed, crossed her arms. Something bad happened at the top. I saw something bad, but I'm not quite sure what. A green flame, a shoe. It's confused, like it's in a kaleidoscope. It comes and it goes. It feels as if I'm receiving someone else's memories from the bottom of a well, in a dream. Someone else's memories. It's my turn. What does your mother do? That's classified. I'll bet it is, she said, giving him an appraising look. Yeah, it's like that's the book, right? Like the book is all about kind of these questions, and nobody has answers to these questions. And when it comes right down to it, the author doesn't seem to be very invested in having answers to the questions either. And here's the thing, sometimes that would be incredibly frustrating, but I love Jeff VanderMeer for that. I love for the fact that you can tell. I don't know if I were Jeff VanderMeer's best friend, I'm not, by the way. I don't know the guy. But if I was, I don't know that he could answer for me in like off the record all of the behind the scenes stuff. I don't think that's the way he thought this out. When I read the trilogy, what I come up with is that I think he thought in ambiguities. Like he thought about area X from the outside instead of like, okay, so let's just take this area and make it this way. And here's the thing is there's something very beautifully there's some very beautiful homage to Roadside Picnic in that there's a lot of Roadside Picnic in Area X. And if you haven't read Roadside Picnic, you should. I have a review for it. But the two things, like, VanderMeer clearly read Roadside Picnic, right? And clearly liked that aspect of the story. And if he adopted that as his own, or if that's just naturally the way he thinks, I'm not familiar with his other work, so I can't speak to that. It works so well in this novel. He's very good at going, okay, I have these ideas, and like, what would these ideas look like from the outside? What would they look like when you encounter them? That's all we need to know. And there's some truth in the fiction there, right? Is that we don't have great answers to a lot of things until we have, until we do. And there's something very beautiful about people struggling to find answers for experiences that are inexplicable. And VanderMeer does that very well. I will say this. The pacing of this novel is super slow compared to Annihilation. Annihilation is a very fast novel. This novel definitely is the placeholder novel in between two books in the trilogy. So it's really like slowing you down and setting the pace for kind of the next novel to come, and ending on, a kind of bang to set up your third novel. I have no complaints about that as a process. However, here's the thing. If you've read Annihilation and you're thinking about reading this book, you have to read the third book after this book. This book is not worth a read unless you're going to finish the trilogy. If you're going to finish the trilogy, finish the trilogy. The trilogy is great. Like, I'm not going to post a bad review about the third book next. The third book is fantastic. But this book is definitely the weakest of the three. So, and it's because it's a foundational book, right? You get like this big mystery in the first book, and then you get kind of this foundational stuff to kind of flush out the mystery, and then, you head right into kind of the heart of the mystery in the third novel. So, when we come back, we're going to be talking about Acceptance, the third novel in the Southern Reach trilogy. Boom. And giving it a good review, because it's good. So, I'll see you guys for that. Bye, everybody.